Yo, what is going on, guys? Crypto Vibes here, also known as Crypto. Bringing you guys another video. And today, guys, I'm going to be going over the UPC Season 3 draft analysis. Now, if you guys weren't around for the end of Season 2, then you probably won't know that I'm actually not in UPC this season. And that's just because I'm ultimately just want to take a break from a couple leagues. And I definitely do plan to potentially come back in Season 4 if I need a spot, because I do like this league a lot, and that's the reason I'm doing all this draft analyst stuff. I'm basically going to be an analyst for the league this season, which is kind of cool. So yeah, that's basically that. But we do have 12 coaches, some new ones in here, which I will go over. We have Lo Mein in his Sacramento Hoopas. We have Arceus in his Los Angeles Lycanrocs. We have the Hobie in his Cincinnati Bagons, and then we have Jay in his New Orleans Pincers. I believe are the 4 new teams. So that's really cool. But yeah, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over each team, try not to spend too long on every team, and then I'm going to pull up my little notepad I have right here and essentially break down the teams in order, which in my opinion, of the 12th to the first best team draft analysis wise. Now obviously that doesn't mean they're going to do the best throughout the season. It's just my opinion on how I feel like their team is going to function and how good they can use it. So yeah, please don't get mad at me. Okay. But anyways, starting off at the #1 pick in the draft, we had Sketch in the Winston Weaviles. Now, one thing I also want to do is talk about each team's S&A tier a little bit more than everything else, and then really just talk about their whole team as a whole, or talk about their team as a whole. And then really just talk about a couple different categories I have written down of what I expect to see in every team. So yeah, Sketch, as you can see, he actually had the first pick in the draft and went with Kyogre. So Kyogre, in my opinion, is definitely worth a first-round pick, and I think it's worth a top 5 pick in the whole draft, personally, just because it has one really solid set, being the Scarfed Water Spout, which is super good if you can keep your Kyogre healthy with a lot of team support, and I do think he covers that very nicely with a couple mods I will go over. And then also his A tier he decided to pick up. He actually got this towards the end of the draft, which was a pretty nice fit for his team, which was the Landorus Incarnate with Sheer Force. Really good compliment to his team. He needed the ground type towards the end anyways. He needed a little bit more of a breaker, in my opinion, on the... Well, it can be a physical or special breaker. Obviously, the Sheer Force Life Orb benefits a little bit more from the special side just because of its coverage and how the Sheer Force Life Orb effect works. So yeah, those two being his top tier picks. And then overall his draft, he has the Necrozma, Mega Manectric, Tornadus Incarnate, Amoonguss, Miltank, Beartick, Kyogre, Landorus Incarnate, Klefki, Armaldo, Scrafty, and Goodra, with his Z-Mons being Necrozma and Beartick. Now, the first thing I want to talk about really on his team as a whole is how do his cores work. That doesn't mean just typing wise, that means like offensively and defensively, but of course I do want to talk about typing wise as well. So I'll just go ahead and talk about the typing cores first off. As you guys know, Fire, Water, Grass is a pretty common core in Giraffe League, and on Sketch's team he actually has 2 parts of that. He has the Water and Grass, which on a Rain team is definitely acceptable. He doesn't have a Fire type, which I don't really see too many Fire types fitting too well on his team that he has right now, and to be honest, I think the Water and Grass is just fine as his only water type being the Kyogre, which is actually kind of interesting on a straight up Rain team that he only has 1 water type, which you could think he has could have a couple more, but he does have a couple sweepers on this team, a couple Rain sweepers on this team that actually aren't water type, which is pretty cool. And he also has the Amoonguss as a Grass type. Now, Amoonguss does get a little bit of a nerf from the Rain. When the Rain is up, the synthesis is marked down to 33%, I believe. If it's 25%, it might be, but I'm not sure. But one thing Amoonguss does have that kind of benefits, at least, is the Regenerator ability. So it's a very nice pivot on his team. It's a good defensive mon if he needs it to be. So I do kind of like that on a Rain team like this, and it obviously does weaken the Fire type move, so it kind of gets rid of a weakness in a sense if the Rain is up. So in a sense, if the Rain is up, then you have the Fire type. Then you obviously do lose your synthesis health, I guess. But it does kind of get rid of a weakness, and if the Rain isn't up, obviously, then you don't switch into Fires as well, but you do have your synthesis back at where it should be, essentially. And yeah, really looking at his next core, I guess you could say the Fairy Dragon Steel core. He has Klefki filling in the Steel and Fairy, and then his Dragon type being the Goodra, which is a very good defensive mon on his team as well, and has a lot of access on a Rain team like this that I will go over shortly. One thing I do kind of find a little interesting is Klefki is going to fill his Steel and Fairy role. So this meaning, essentially it's going to be one of his better Dragon checks. Just because, you know, Dragons are checked by Steel and Fairies, but Klefki has that all in one. So Klefki doesn't be very wary of Dragons with very strong coverage to hit it with Fire and Ground. and stuff like that. So Klefki does kind of have a defensive role if you think about it on this team, but it does have a lot of support options as well that I will go over. I definitely could see another fairy being good on this team, just so it takes a little pressure off Klefki from certain dragons. Because other than that, he doesn't really have a good dragon resist at all. No, he doesn't have another dragon resist on his team, which is something to point out other than Klefki. So Klefki is going to be very relied on in that category, as Gudra can take on some dragons, but Gudra is slower than a lot of them too, so that's one thing to keep in mind. So yeah, I definitely could see a potential another fairy being good on this team, but for now, we'll see what Klefki can do. But yeah. And then another core I consider very important is the Psychic Fighting Dark core, which is on Sketch's team, he has the Scrap Thief, which fills the Fighting and Dark role, and then on the Psychic, he has the Necrozma, which Necrozma is a very good model on this team. I think it fits his team very nicely. I think it can be very good offensively or defensively. Defensively, he does have some nice mons already, like Miltank, Amoonguss, Gudra, even Kyogre if he wants it to be. So I could definitely see Necrozma having some opened up room to be offensive when it needs to, and then defensively, obviously, it has its room in with like Stealth Rocks and stuff if you ever just want to run that. Although it does have Moonlight being nerfed by the rain, which is another thing I need to point out. So a little bit of his recovery options are being wore down just because of the rain in general. So yeah, that's one thing. And yeah, that's basically it for core wise as far as that. I talked about offense and defensively, I guess, a little bit, but I guess get into his hazards. I believe Sketch has 4 different rockers, which is the Necrozma, Miltank, Landorus Incarnate, and Armaldo. So very solid in my opinion. He has different typings for rockers too, like Necrozma being Psychic type, Miltank being normal, Landorus I being ground and flying, and then Armaldo being bug and rock, which I think is very important because I feel like a lot of rockers are actually very, very weak to rock, or very, very weak to water type, I'm sorry. Things like Miltank and Necrozma can, 1v1 those in their respective mons. They can 1v1 certain waters, which is nice. And he can definitely deal with waters with things like Mega Manectric and Amoonguss. So I feel like he definitely has good rockers on his team, and he also does have the Klefki, which I feel like is the ultimate support mon on this team. I think it's a very good mon on this team. Klefki being that it can set up spikes, reflect for certain sweepers like Scrafty, even to get Kyogre and Tornadus and Landorus in freer, which is very good. And the fact that he has double Prankster with Tornadus Incarnate and Klefki is very solid on his team in my opinion too. Being sure that he can potentially get Rain Up whenever Kyogre can't come in, and to potentially get one of his sweepers like Armaldo or Beartick in. And as you can see, Beartick is one of his Z-mons, so that's going to be very solid on his team as well. Mon did I not really talk about? I think I've talked about most everything on his team. I really don't want to get too much into it because I don't want this video to be like 4 hours long. But yeah, that's really like a brief analysis of Sketch's team. I think it's pretty solid. I think the users he chose were very good too. Beartick has a lot of coverage, Necrozma just being very diverse in general, so I do like that about his team. But anyways, moving on into the second team in the draft, we have the... oh yeah, I forgot. This is one other thing I want to talk about. This last thing on Sketch's team. Momentum is one thing I want to talk about on all the teams, so I do want to talk about Sketch's Momentum. He does have the Mega Manectric with Volt Switch. He has a couple U-turners, I believe, with Landorus Incarnate and Tornadus Incarnate. And other than that, I think that's it. So Momentum is okay. It's not amazing. It's not bad on this team. So I think he will really rely on the support options from his Tornadus and Klefki a lot to get a lot of pivoting going on his team. So we'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, getting to the next team, we have the Portland Primates and Coach Honor, who had the second pick in the draft and actually decided to go with the Naganadel. Let me grab a drink real quick. There's going to be a lot of talking, so get ready. He picked up the Naganadel as his A tier, which is a good mon. Definitely respectable first pick. I believe it was like minus 40, so we got 40 points back for it, which is really solid, so that's probably why I wanted to pick it up early. So I can definitely see that, as it's a really, really solid sweeper overall. I'll talk about how I think his team complements or doesn't complement Naganadel the best in a little bit, but yeah. And then his S tier being Lunala, which he actually scooped up late in the draft, being one of the last picks, I believe, which was really solid because the fact that it was still there was pretty good. As it's really, I feel like Lunala is a very good defensive and offensive Pokemon. Very fits that role where you can just need it to do what you need it to do. Like, if that makes any sense, I guess. Yeah. But overall, his team is the Megalopony, Arcanine, Araquanid, Serena, Zoroark, Aggron, Lunala, Naganadel, Gardevoir, Regice, Regirock, Thundurus Incarnate, and his users being Naganadel and Thundurus Incarnate. So I'll actually talk about his users first, just because I think those are two of the stronger Z users. Throughout the whole draft, I think he picked very, very solid Z users, being Naganadel and Thundurus Incarnate, which are just super good Z users in general. Thundurus getting up a nasty Plier agility, just being able to sweep with that potential Z move, breaking through a wall that it really couldn't break through before without the Z move. And then Naganadel, I don't even know what to say about that thing. It's so broken. The fact that I believe this is the first season it's in the UPC, so it's gonna be interesting to see how it fares. And it also does give him it also does give Honor a grounded poison, which is good, just to guarantee spikes, which is something I thought I'd point out early on. But yeah, going into his team in general, let's go ahead and start off with his cores again. His Fairy Dragon Steel consists of the Not Gonna Del being his dragon, the Gardevoir Fairy, and his steel being Aggron. So not bad. I feel like Aggron is a decent steel. It's got very good defense, but his defensive typing is not the greatest, being that it's weak to very prominent typings like ground and water. And there is a lot of good ground and water Pokemon in this draft, so we'll see how Aggron fares on this team. I do really like the fact that he has Gardevoir. I think Gardevoir is a really good Pokemon in the UPC. I'm sorry, and I think it's a really good Pokemon in UPC just because of one of its abilities being Trace, which is very, very nice on certain teams against like Sketch, for example. Sketch has the Rain team, so if you ever want to trace a Swift Swim from one of the Pokemon, then that could be very solid. A Choice Scarf, Swift Swim, Gardevoir. Tracing like a Pokemon in the Rain, or I believe there's a Sun team, so tracing the Chlorophyll could be something really nice. Or just tracing really solid ability in general. If you guys, yeah, it's just really solid. And then his Dragon being, of course, the Not Gonna Del, which is an amazing sweeper. So, yeah, that's basically his Fairy Dragon Steel. Fire, Water, Grass, he has the Arcanine, Araquanid is his water, I believe, and then his Grass being the Serena. So not bad there. I do like the fact that he has the Araquanid and the Serena together, because Araquanid can get up webs, and he does have the pretty good spinner and Serena, so not necessarily having to get rid of his own webs for the price of getting rid of his opponent's potential rocks or spikes or whatever is up on his side. That's a very solid idea, and I like that on his team. So I do think that's a good option. He has the Arcanine, which is... I really like Arcanine. I think it should be pretty good for him this season. It looks like it'll fit a very nice defensive role in his team. His team is very offensive, I will say, outside of a few of his last picks, being like Regice, Regirock, Aggron, and such. But I feel like Arcanine, with the longevity, with the Morning Sun and such, I think it'll be a very good defensive mod for him this season. And should complement his Fire, Water, Grass core very nicely. And yeah, the fact that he has webs with the Araquanid should be pretty nice. I don't know if they're necessary on a team like this, considering a lot of his sweepers are already really, really fast, but they could be very nice for potential Choice Scarfers that try to bother Mega Lopunny and stuff, so I do kind of like the option there. And it does have a great ability being Water Bubble, so it gives him a very nice water and fire resist there. And yeah, his other core being the Psychic Fighting Dark. He has the Gardevoir being a Psychic fighting Mega Lopunny, and then his Dark type being a Zoroark, which is actually really cool on this team. I think Zoroark has a really cool niche on this team, being that if he wants to lead with Araquanid and it's actually Zoroark, that's another thing. He could like fake his webs immediately turn 1, and if another Pokemon, like, I don't really know, let me try to think of a good scenario. Let's say Araquanid is up against a... What's Araquanid bad against? Electric types, I guess. I mean, Zoroark could be decent against those. If the opponent ever thinks Araquanid's in and it just goes for webs or something similar or something simple like that, then Zoroark could potentially get some offensive pressure on the team immediately. Zoroark can also be a good bluff for Mega Lopunny as well, so you may send in your bulky Psychic on a Mega Lopunny, which is actually Zoroark, and the Psychic type gets severely crippled for Mega Lopunny to actually come in and do some work later in the game. So I do like that offensive capability there with the Zoroark, which is a good option. One thing I don't personally like about the team too much is his rockers are Aggron and Regirock. Now, I couldn't think of the word for this earlier, but they're very, very similar. And I do think they're pretty easy to prevent rocks from getting up with either taunts, just a strong water type of lead. I don't know how I feel about those two being his only rockers. I feel like he could have potentially gotten one more rocker and maybe diversified the type a little bit. Like I was talking about with Sketch's team, he has the Necrozma, Miltank, Landorus, and Armaldo, all very, very different in their own fashion, and they can all get up rocks. So that is one thing I'm going to find a little bit difficult for on his team, but I really, really do like the offensive synergy of this team, and I think webs are cool on this team. So we'll have to see how they function. I think Arcanine's going to be a very good mod on this team too. And then the momentum on his team, he has, what does he have? He has the Mega Lopunny gets Baton Pass, which is solid. He has the Zoroark might get U-turn, don't quote me on that. Don't really know for sure. Thunderous Incarnate with the Volt Switch, so decent momentum for sure. And I definitely want to see how he can play his Zoroark on this team. I think it'll be really cool how he can play Zoroark. And his potential sweepers are so scary. Not going to Del and Thunderous Incarnate. Teams are going to have trouble with that for sure. Now getting into the next team, we have Sumami and the Seattle Solanits with the 3rd pick in the draft, and I believe he decided to go with his boy Veltal, him picking it two times in a row for Season 2 and Season 3, of course. And then Yveltal is just a really solid mon overall. It's got a I don't like its speed tier too much, being at 99. That is one thing that bothers me a little bit about Yveltal, but other than that, it's a really solid mon. It's incredibly strong. It's got a really nice HP stat of 126, I believe, with decent defenses. And nice ability, Dark Aura, I believe is called, or something like that. It raises dark moves, I'm pretty sure, or raises its moves in general. I believe it's his dark moves overall, but really solid offensive mon for his team. I can potentially see it being a good choice card on his team, as well as just a good breaker. I think it was a good pick. And then his A tier, he actually downgraded to Infernape. It gives him 40 points back, just like something like Noggin and Dell would. But I guess he wanted Infernape on this, which I don't know what was exactly left on the board, but I do like Infernape on this team. I think it fills a lot of niche roles on this team. It gives him a very, very diverse mon. Infernape's a very, very good diverse mon in general. It gives him a rocker. It gets Endeavor, which is a very cool set. Focus Sash, Stealth Rocks, Endeavor is a very nice set. It's also a very good choice scarf or choice band, or even choice specs, however you want to use it. Very good hidden power user. Very good coverage overall. It is one of his Z users as well. Infernape and Zygarde 50 being his users. But anyways, let's get into the team as a whole. He has the Zygarde 50, Magnezone, Mega Pidgeot, Tentacruel, Seismitoad, Xatu, Yveltal, Infernape, Alakazam, Shedinja, Tangrowth, and Vikavolt, with the Z users being Infernape and Zygarde 50%. Right away, let's get into the course once again, as his Fairy Dragon... no, Firewater Grass is what we want to start with again. Firewater Grass, he has the Tentacruel and Seismitoad being 2 waters. He has the Infernape as his fire and Tangrowth as his grass. Now, personally, this is one of my favorite Firewater Grass cores, just because he does have 2 waters, yes, but I feel like they're so different. Tentacruel being something that can set up T-Spikes and spin. Well, I feel like it's a very good spinner on his team, and I think he did a good job drafting around it, for sure. I think it definitely complements his team very nicely. And Seismitoad, I believe, was a free agent move he made immediately after the draft, which I definitely understand, because other than Infernape, Seismitoad is his only rocker, so that is one thing that's going to be pretty interesting about his team. He does only have 2 rockers, but he does have options to T-Spikes with the Tentacruel as well, so that's something nice about his team. So I do like that. I think he did a good job drafting around the Zygarde. Whereas Zygarde does have trouble with the fairies. Tentacruel's a very good fairy check in general. Infernape is a decent, it doesn't switch into him well, I guess, but it's there. He has the Magnezone, which is really cool. Also traps Steel types for Mega Pidgeot, which is very solid. I guess I should go into the next core, being his Steel Fairy Dragon, which is Magnezone. He does not have a fairy, which is a little bit, it bothers me a little bit, considering there's so many good dragons in this draft. So I don't know how I feel about that. Magnezone is going to be pressured a lot to switch into potential dragon attacks. Looking at the rest of his team, he does have Shedinja, which is an option to switch into dragon moves if he wants to, and then Zygarde potentially can beat some dragons 1v1. And then different coverage with ice coverage and whatnot, so we'll see how that fares. But like I said, I do really like the Magnezone on this team. Magnezone is a hard mon to build on certain teams, but I think Sumami did a good job putting it on this team. To whereas it traps Steel types for things like Mega Pidgeot to really go in, and things like Alakazam. It really opens up doors for those mons right there, because if you think about it, Alakazam doesn't really have great switch-ins besides certain Steels, certain Darks and such, so Magnezone can really get rid of those Steels for it. And Mega Pidgeot, where it does have Heat Wave, so it can hit Steels, if Magnezone's able to get rid of some of those, I think Mega Pidgeot can just do really solid, just spamming Hurricane and such. So that's really solid on his team. And then the Fighting Dark Psychic core on his team, he has the Infernape, Yveltal, and Xatu? And Alakazam. He has 2 Psychics being Xatu and Alakazam, which I think is pretty solid. I guess I'll count as Fighting Dark Psychic as Alakazam, Infernape, and Yveltal, which is really, really good. Obviously, like I talked about, that's like a really solid breaking core. Like the Fighting Psychic Dark, like that's probably one of the better ones, to be honest. They all break each other's necessary mons. They all break each other's weaknesses very nicely, and I think that was a very good compliment on his team. One thing I want to talk about, I'm going to try to talk about the critiques. I'm going to try and critique every team a little bit, and one thing I want to critique about Sumami's team a little bit is he is extremely Stealth Rock weak. He has, I believe, 5 Pokemon weak to Stealth Rocks, which is definitely a big deal because Stealth Rocks are so prominent in the metagame right now. With Mega Pidgeot, Xatu, Yveltal, Shedinja, and Vikavolt. And then his ways of getting rid of rocks are one of his flying types being Yveltal, Xatu, or Mega Pidgeot. He actually has three flying types now that I look at it, which is kind of interesting. So He's a little bit electric spammable, whereas only ground type. He does have 2 ground types being Seismitoad and Zygarde, so I guess it does kind of get rid of that. And Tangrowth is a very good electric check if it's like Assault Vest most of the time. But yeah, that's one thing I pointed out. He's very weak to rocks. And where he has a Shedinja on this team, I don't feel like it's complemented the best. I know Shedinja is like one of his mons he always gets, which is definitely respectable because it's like his iconic mon. But I don't feel like it's complemented the best with the team he has around it. He does have a Magic Bouncer in Xatu, don't get me wrong, that's nice there. And he does have a Spinner in Tentacruel, but I feel like just he has so many mons weak to rocks that is going to wear on him a little bit, so that's interesting. But getting into the momentum on Tsumami's team, I think Tsumami has one of the better momentum teams with Magnezone, with Volt Switch, Mega Pidgeot U-Turn, Xatu U-Turn, Yveltal U-Turn, Infernape U-Turn, Vikavolt, Volt Switch, and he might have another one. I'm sorry if I don't see it, but I think that's mainly it. And then his Z users, I think he picked the 2 best Z users on his team, Infernape and Zygarde. 2 really solid options, in my opinion. Getting into the next team. Let me grab another drink. This is gonna be a long video, boys. Alright. Getting into the next team, we have the Inkitown Incineroar and Coach Oak with his yeah, getting to Oak. He had the 4th pick in the draft, and he actually got Mewtwo with the 4th pick, which is a very solid mon, of course. And getting a 4th pick is actually kind of a steal in my opinion. Mewtwo is definitely a mon I could see going 1 or 1st or 2nd a lot of times, so definitely like that on his team. Gives him an immediate strong Psychic. It's very hard to switch into strong Psychic types, especially with a mon like Mewtwo, which has incredible coverage, and it is one of his Z users, so that might be one of the scariest mons in the draft in whole, so that's pretty scary. And then his A tier, he actually downgraded same like Tsumami and went with Tapu Fini, which I do think is a good fit on his team. I'll explain why in a little bit, but being that he had to downgrade to it, I don't know how I feel about that. But we'll go ahead and just go over his team right now. He has the Blacephalon, Bisharp, Nidoqueen, Haxorus, Linoone, Audino, Mewtwo, Tapu Fini, Terrakion, Raikou, Scyther, and why did I just go Executor? I couldn't say his name for a second. Okay. But yeah, that's his team, and his users being Mewtwo and Terrakion, which I feel like are probably the best users on his team. Yeah, I mean, maybe Blacephalon could have been nice, but Terrakion appreciates him a little bit more probably. But yeah, getting into his Fire Water Grass, he has the Blacephalon, Tapu Fini, and Executor, which Blacephalon and Fini are really solid. Executor can be a good mon for him. I think grass types are super important on a team, so I do like that he picked one up at least. So that's nice. They're really good. They also, all 3 of those do very different things in general. Blacephalon's a very solid breaker as well as a late game cleaner. Tapu Fini on this team, you're going to see, I'm going to explain why Tapu Fini is a very important defensive mon on Oak's team in a little bit. Why I think it will be a very important defensive mon. And then the Executor being a mon that I could see come a couple of games this season, but not too much. But I think it is a decent grass to pick up, especially in tier 5. So solid picks there. Overall, pretty decent Fire Water Grass. Getting into his next core, he has the Steel Fairy Dragon. He has the Bisharp, Haxorus, Steel Fairy Dragon. He has the Bisharp, Bisharp, Haxorus, and Tapu Fini, which is a very solid core in general. Bisharp being very solid in draft now, especially with the Defiant ability with all the new defoggers, is going to be very solid on his team. It's another very good, what is it? What is the word? It's another, it's just a mon. It's got a really nice buff, essentially, for Gen 7. And I also really like the, I really do like that it's a good Pursuit Trapper on his team too. It really helps out things like Terrakion and Blacephalon. Well, not so much Blacephalon, but I guess Terrakion from Psychic types, as well as, what else does not like Psychic types on this team? Nidoqueen. So it's a very good Pursuit Trapper on his team. I do like the pick on it. I do like the pick. I don't like it as an only Steel type. I think it's his only Steel on the team. Yeah, I don't like it too much as only Steel type because... let me see. His only Fairy Resist on the team is he has Nidoqueen and Blacephalon, which are his only Fairy Resist. So that's going to be a little interesting considering a lot of fairies have access to Psychic coverage. So I do want to see how that can play out there. I do really like Fini on his team. Like I was talking about, I'll go ahead and talk about why I think it's going to be super important defensively. If you look at his team as a whole, super offensive. And then Fini is there as a good defensive mon. It can set up screens for him, gets up the terrain, so it kind of just stops. It's good for things like Haxorus. I mean, it's good and bad for things like Haxorus because Haxorus can't get status while it's trying to set up, but it obviously has its dragon moves weakened, so that's going to be interesting. I think it's good to set up. I think Fini's very good for Linoone as a sweeper. I think Fini's very good for things like Blacephalon, and Blacephalon never wants to try to set up without getting paralyzed or something, so that's good. And yeah, it's a pretty nice Fairy Dragon Steel core. And then getting to the last core of the Psychic Fighting Dark, he has the Bisharp, Mewtwo, and Terrakion, which is another very solid core right there of offense. It pretty much breaks everything like I was talking about with Tsumami's team. Not Psychic Fighting Dark Core breaks a lot of different typings in general, and it's a very solid on this team, in my opinion. With his Z-Mons being Mewtwo and Terrakion, that is going to be that's going to be a very solid Z users in general. One thing I want to critique about the Oaks team again, it's a big weakness problem. Like I'm going to be talking about this on certain teams. Like certain teams have just big weakness problems. Whether it's with general typings, they have trouble with certain typings. Whether it's weak hazards, weak hazard removal, weak momentum, weak defensive synergy, weak offensive synergy, just stuff like that. But Oaks team has a huge ground weakness. Blacephalon, Bisharp, Nidoqueen, Terrakion, Raikou all being weak to ground, whereas his only immunity to ground is Scyther, which does not appreciate switching to Stealth Rocks if they're up, which does 50% to it. And Scyther is just a very, very Pheromon in general. And then his grass type is being Executor, so I don't know exactly how much that's going to come to switch on other ground types. So that's why I think the Tapu Fini is going to be extremely important defensively for this team. I feel like that ground is just going to be annoying, spammable for Oaks team. So if he can pivot appropriately into his Tapu Fini, then he can pressure the ground types at least. But Fini doesn't have any reliable recovery either, which is a little bit problematic. But that is another reason I do like the Audino pick later on. He does have a Wish Pass on Audino, which I think is very important for things like Tapu Fini. Potentially a Calm on Raikou could be nice if you ever want to pivot into that. It's just a good mono thing on this team. Double Fairy, well, I don't see a problem with Double Fairy on this team, really. I do kind of like that. But like I said, that ground weakness is a little scary. I think ground spam is very, very good against Oak. So that is something to keep in mind. But overall, I do like the offensive synergy of this team. I think the offensive team overall fits Oak's playstyle. I think he's very good with offense, so we'll have to see how he fares with this. And then, oh yeah, it's momentum again. Momentum, he doesn't have much momentum. Yeah, Raikou with Volt Switch is his only... Oh, Scyther with U-Turn. Yeah, those two mons are his only source of momentum, so it's almost like I feel like his games are going to be very, very short with like 15 to 20 turns, just blowing things back with his offense and then him getting blown back because his team's not necessarily the most defensive, but we'll have to see how it fares. I think it's a really cool team. Getting to the next team, we have our first new coach for the season. We have the New Orleans I was about to say the New Orleans Pelipers. I watched a little bit too much UVA. The New Orleans Pincers and Coach Jay. Getting to Jay's team, he has the Deoxys attack as his S tier, which ultimately is a pretty much an impossible Pokemon to switch into for the most part. So you're going to want to have your priority on deck and your just mons that can take one hit from it in general. So yeah, switching around on that thing is not fun at all. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Deoxys attack is one of his users, so that's gonna be very, very strong for him. I do like that on his team. And then as his A tier pick, he went with the Mega Lucario, which is another strong mon. It is his Steel type and Fighting type on the team, so I think it's very good for him. Mega Lucario is just a good setup mon. It gets priority. It gets priority with the Bullet Punch and whatnot, so it's a good mon. But getting into his team overall, he has the Landorus, Therian, Keldeo, Snorlax, Ditto, Alolan Persian, Garbodor, Deoxys Attack, Mega Lucario, Latios, Swellow, Electabuzz, and Musharna, with his users being Deoxys Attack and Landorus Therian. Now, let's go ahead and get into the first cores on this team. He does have the Fire, Water, Grass core of Keldeo. Does he have fire? He has the Keldeo. Does he have a grass either? Where's his grass? Yeah, I guess he only has Keldeo. I don't see a fire or a grass. Yeah, it's only the Keldeo. So that's very interesting. I do think grasses are very important on drafts, and then he could definitely use a fire type on this team, so I don't know exactly how I feel about that. But let's just talk about Keldeo. Keldeo within itself is a very solid mon. It's a very good choice specs user. It can break for certain mons on his team. I do like the fact that it can break down certain fire types, I guess, for... What is fire types? Yeah, I guess fire types for Mega Lucario are a little bit of an issue. Things like Arcanine and whatnot. Keldeo is good at breaking that down, so that's good overall. So that's really all I can say about the Fire, Water, Grass, because it is only Keldeo, of course. So that's a little bit of problem right away, I notice. But getting to the Fairy, Dragon, Steel core, he does have the Steel of Mega Lucario, Dragon of Latios, and Fairy with the no Fairy. Yeah, no Fairy on the team, which is also interesting. So he's missing a lot of key typings, in my opinion. So we're going to really have to go into the team in depth after these cores in a second, just to really see where he's going with the team. So yeah, anyways, with the Steel type of Mega Lucario, it's not at all a defensive Steel. So that is one thing to point out, but it is a very, very good offensive Steel type. So it has access to things like Swords Dance, I believe Nasty Plot, and even Agility. So very, very good for that. It does have its own priority in Bullet Punch and Vacuum Wave. Very good there, and some very decent coverage moves overall, so nice there. And yeah, that's pretty solid. And yeah, that's pretty much that for that. What is the last thing? The Psychic Fighting Dark Core. He has the Keldeo, Deoxys Attack, and Mega Lucario. So that's a very solid core. This is a very offensive team as well as Oak. So, but I do like the Psychic Fighting Dark Core. I feel like that could be a very nice improvement for him there. That is at least one nice thing of the cores. I'm not liking the cores too much on this team, so that's one thing I want to point out immediately. But other than that, I do like the Fighting Psychic Dark Core, like I was talking about. Very offensive, good overall. I do want to talk about some of the synergy on this team. I think he has some decent synergy with things like Ditto. I think Ditto's very good in case he's ever up against another offensive team. Or, for example, say he's faced up against a Cresselia or a... what's another mon? A really bulky mon that can set up or something. Just a bulky mon in general that can set up. I don't know why I'm going blank on that. Registeel or something. I don't even know if anybody drafted that. But a really bulky mon in general that sets up. I do think Ditto's very nice for that because his team does have very nice breaking capabilities. But if there's a mon that sets up that's very defensive that he can't break necessarily, then he's going to struggle with that a lot because his team doesn't really have the best defensive backbones other than Snorlax, and things like Landorus can be defensive, but his team's just not very bulky in general. Musharna, but I don't know how often that's going to come. So we'll have to see. I think Ditto fills a very cool niche on his team, so I do like that. But one mon I really do like on his team is the Alolan Persian. I really do like the Alolan Persian. I think it gives him a very good parting shot user. Of course, that is what it mainly does, parting shot, but I think it's a good dark type for the team. I think being able to parting shot immediately into things like Latios to potentially sweep, Mega Lucario, even Deoxys Attack if it's able to set up somehow. And then the Landorus Therian, very solid with there. So he has a lot of potential sweepers with the Alolan Persian, so I do like that he added the Alolan Persian. So yeah, that's good. And then his hazard removal on this team is the Landorus Therian and the Deoxys Attack are his only two Stealth Rockers now. And then he does have the T-Spikes and Spikes option of Garbodor, which is going to be pretty important because I don't know necessarily how much Deoxys and Landorus are going to be carrying Stealth Rocks. Now, the reason I say that is because those are both his Z users, which is very interesting. So, don't know how I feel about that. Obviously, they are good Z users, but I don't like the fact that they are his only Stealth Rockers. So, that's one thing I'm going to have to be a little weary about, or one thing that's a little weary about his team that I will keep in mind. Type-wise, he does have a little bit of weakness to Ice, but he has things like Keldeo and Snorlax with Thick Fat, which are very good resistances, and Mega Lucario on an offensive switch. Which I feel like he doesn't have too many like big weaknesses now that I'm looking at it. But like a couple things, like his team synergy is okay, but I don't really like his cores. His cores are a little bit off, and I feel like his hazards in general are a little bit weak. Removal, he has Landorus, Therian, Latios. I think that's it. Yeah, two defoggers that are offensive Pokemon. So he's got a very offensive team. I'm going to be interested to see how he can use it. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about the New Orleans Pelipers and Coach Jay. Moving into the next team. One second. Moving into the next team, we have the U-Turn Jazz and Coach Kurt with his draft. He's got the Necrozma Dust, or the Necrozma Dawn Wings. The Dusk Wings Dusk got actually banned. Necrozma Dawn, he actually elected to pick, which is a very bulky mon overall. So really cool. I'm gonna love to see how people try to break that apart. I've never really seen it used too much. I don't play Ubers or anything, and this is the first time it's in the UPC, so it's gonna be very interesting to see how it works. And then his A tier being the Mega Mawile, which in my opinion is a very solid Mega. I'll talk about how I feel about it on this team here in a little bit, but yeah, his whole team in general is the Garchomp, Togekiss, Porygon2, Drapion, Steelix, Crustle, Necrozma Dusk, Duskweens, Mega Mawile, Shaman, Mantine, Rotom Frost, and Emboar, with his users being Necrozma Duskweens and Garchomp. So pretty solid Z users. I guess those are pretty much the only Z users I could have seen. I don't really see anything else. Drapion potentially, but I think Necrozma is a good option. So we'll see how that fares. Going into his cores immediately, the Fire, Water, Grass. He has the option to run the Fire of Emboar, Water with Mantine, and Grass with the Shaman. Yeah, so pretty decent core right there. I can definitely see a lot of those mons come into his games very frequently, so I do like that about his cores. It's a pretty defensive core. Emboar can definitely take some hits. Mantine's a very defensive mon in general, very good defogger. He's got the Shaman, which is just a really good mon in general. A mon I need to learn how to use, to be frank. Shaman has some very good capabilities though, with Synthesis, Leech Seed, Decent coverage, not exactly the strongest unless you invest a decent amount into it, but it does have a very strong move in Seed Flare, which can obviously lower the special defense by 2, which is very solid. So Shaman's just a good mon in general, and I do like his Firewater Grass score. His Steel Fairy Dragon is I guess I'm going to count Mega Mawile over Steelix. He does have Mega Maul and Steelix. And then he has the Togekiss as a fairy and the Garchomp. So very, very strong Fairy Dragon Steel Core with the exceptions of Steelix in the back as an option of another Steel. And then Togekiss and Mega Mawile both being fairy. So I do really, really like the synergy between those. I feel like they're very good defensively and offensively. Like I'll be saying that a couple times throughout these analysis just to like break it down. As I feel like Togekiss is just a really good mon paired with Garchomp. I think they have good synergy. Obviously, they're both weak to Ice, which he does have 2 Steels, so that's a good thing to keep in mind. As well as a Mantine, they can take on Ices pretty nicely, and as well as the Immor, which is just an incredible breaker. With fighting and fire coverage, it should break Steel, so very solid. Yeah, and then getting to his next core of the Psychic Fighting Dark. Let's see, does he have everything? Drapion, Necrozma Duskwings, and the Imbor, yes. So really solid there again. Necrozma is really cool. Like I don't know too much to say about it. I think it's a good mon, but I just don't know what to say about it too much, to be honest. I really like Drapion. I think it's a good mon for the team. T-Spikes with Porygon 2 and Togekiss as defensive options with like Steelix and such, I think are really cool. And Shaman, because if you can get T-Spikes up and wear things down for potential things to sweep late game, like Garchomp, Mega Mawile, Scarfed Imbor, stuff like that, it can be very solid. So I do really, really like that on this team. One thing I want to point out about Kurt's team immediately right now is his team is incredibly slow. I believe his fastest mon is Garchomp at 102, which, yeah, the Garchomp at 102 is his fastest mon, which is not too good, to be completely honest. So I definitely want to see how he can utilize this team, as it's not even a Trick Room team. You can see that he does have he might have a couple Trick Room users. I don't think Porygon 2 is his only Trick Room user. If he added a couple more Trick Room users, like 1 or 2 more Trick Room users, maybe even 3, I could definitely see this team being very solid. But it's gonna struggle a lot with the speed tiers in this league, I feel like. So that is one thing I have to mark the team on. So, but other than that, I really like his cores. I think he has solid cores overall, offensively and defensively. But yeah, let's get into his hazard game. He does have the Garchomp with Stealth Rocks, the Steelix with Stealth Rocks, Crustle with Stealth Rocks, Mega Mawile with Stealth Rocks, and those 4. So very solid Stealth Rockers overall. And then the T-Spike option with Drapion. So he does have a lot of good hazards options, and stacking for things like Mega Mawile late game and Scarfed Imbor, like I was talking about, is very good options. So that's another reason I feel like he has very good hazards and very good ways to potentially put his win cons in good positions to win. But he doesn't really have that many great win cons because his team is just super slow. So we'll have to see how that fares off. He does have a very good defensive team, so maybe he'll try to win most of his games that way. So that could be an option. But yeah. That's pretty much it for that. His removal options are Togekiss, which is a very solid defogger. He has the, I believe Crustle might get Rapid Spin. I don't remember if Crustle gets Rapid Spin or not. It might. Necrozma Duskwing or Dusk might get Defog. I'm not sure. But then he has Mantine as another good defogger. I do like his defoggers. A spinner could have been nice on this team potentially, but his defoggers are very good, so I do like that. And momentum game on this team isn't. Actually, hold on. His Baton Pass, Mega Mawile, and that's in Rotom Frost is his Volt Switch, so not very much momentum. I do actually think that's okay on this team just because it's so defensive. I think it's a good defensive slow team, so I think that's really going to be his best way of pulling out wins this season, is playing very, very slow and defensive throughout the games. Just seeing how he can play. Getting those T-Spikes up with Drapion is going to be important for things like Shaman, Mantine, just wearing things down over time, and potentially win with Garchomp. And more Mega Mawile, like I was talking about. So I do like that on this team, so we'll have to see how it fares. Anyways, we are down to the bottom half now, as I get one more drink, and then I'll try to push us through. Yeah, we're down to the Sacramento Hoopas and Coach Lomane. Now, Coach Lomane is another new coach here. As get into his S tier, we have the Mega Salamence, which is incredibly good Mega in this format. With Ubers and whatnot, has access to Dragon Dance like the regular one, of course. It's a very bulky mon in general. Before Mega Evolving, it does have access to Intimidate. You do have to make it turn 1 though, which is something to keep in mind, but I don't think that's too big of a deal with Mega Salamence. It is very solid. You're going to kind of notice his team here in a little bit, being that it's very offensive, but he has the Mega Salamence as his S tier, and then he has the Magearna as his A tier, which in my opinion, Magearna A tier is probably the best A tier. There's a couple other A tiers that are really solid, like Mega Blaziken are really good, but I think Magearna is one of the best. for sure. But so I do like the combination that he filled out his Fairy Dragon of Steel with just those 2 picks alone. I do think that's very solid. And yeah, very good overall. So yeah, his team overall is the Weavile, Suicune, Cobalion, Alolan Ninetales, Licky, Haunter, Mega Salamence, Magearna, Decidueye, Volcarona, Donphan, and Gothorita, with his Z captains being Magearna and Cobalion. Z captains being Magearna and Cobalion. So yeah, getting into his cores immediately. Fairy Dragon Steel, I guess I'll go over that first since he has the Magearna and Mega Salamence. I think those just offensively just they can pretty much speak for themselves. That's probably in a twosome, that's probably the best Fairy Dragon Steel, just because those 2 mons are super good together. He does have another Steel, I believe. Yeah, he does have another Steel, so that's something to keep in mind. But so yeah, that's really good. I do like his Fairy Dragon Steel, like in the twosome right there. They're 2 really good breakers together, win cons, so I do like that on his team. You can see he has Veil on this team too, so this is going to be an incredibly scary offensive team, so get ready. He has the Fire, Water, Grass core of Decidueye, Volcarona, and Suicune. So a really solid core right there. I know Lomain's very familiar with Decidueye, so that's a good pick for him, I think. As it's another mon, it's a grass type mon that gets roost, so it doesn't have to rely on synthesis. Obviously, that would be nerfed in the hail and other weather effects, which there are a couple weather teams. So I do like the fact that he has Decidueye on this team. I think it's a good pick, and it gives him a little bit of backbone on the defensive side. And he has the Volcarona, which is obviously a sweeper on this team. I think it's good with Veil. It's actually really good with Veil. It could have been a good Z user, but he does have Magearna Cobalion, which is pretty solid, so I'm not going to get on too much for that. So yeah, we'll just have to see how he can support the Volcarona on this team. It does require a lot of support, and then his water type being Suicune, which is incredibly good behind Veil. I can't rave how good this thing is behind Veil. Suicune being his water type, I think is the perfect fit for this team. Yeah, it's a really good mon, and it really appreciates the Licky Wish passing. You're going to see he does have the Licky, so that's really solid on his team. What is it? His hazards on his team. He has the Donphan, which is also a spinner, which is very important for the Volcarona. He has the Cobalion, which is a very good rocker. Does he have any other rockers? I think those are his only 2 rockers. I will give him a little bit of a break though. I think those are 2 very, very good rockers, and I think one of the 2 can come almost every single game. And I think both of them can function with or without rocks, being that Donphan's a pretty good Assault Vest user, and that Cobalion can function with Z moves and whatnot and doesn't really need rocks in that sense. So yeah, they can kind of trade off right there. I think they're both pretty decent rockers, so I'm not going to get too off on them for that, but I don't question too much on this. He does have the Donphan as a spinner, which is good for things like Volcarona and whatnot. And his other defoggers aren't the best. He has Decidueye, which is decent. But then his other defoggers are Volcarona and Mega Salamence, I believe, his only other defoggers. Yeah. So he's gonna. Oh my gosh, he's gonna rely on Rapid Spin, Donphan a lot, in my opinion, on this team. And then defog Decidueye. So we'll have to see how that comes into play. I do feel like he's supporting the Volcarona somewhat decently. He does have the double steel, so that's kind of nice for rocks right there, or rock type Pokemon. Certain water types are a little annoying for this team because Decidueye doesn't always like switching into Scalds. Considering if it's physical, it can get burnt. I'm looking for other Scald switch-ins on his team. I guess Suicune's not bad, but his team doesn't really appreciate the move Scald too much. So that's one thing to point out. And yeah, his Psychic Fighting Dark core is actually one core I forgot to talk about, which is the does he have a Psychic? He picked up Gothorita as his Psychic type, so that's something I'm going to have to point out. I think Psychic types are pretty important, and I think Gothorita it's cool because you can use the Arena, or not the Arena Trap, but the is it Arena Trap? It might be, no, it's not the Arena Trap. What is the ability? Shadow Tag. Shadow Tags, but that's one cool niche about it, but being his only Psychic type, not too big of a fan of that, so that's one thing I'm going to have to kind of keep in mind. But his Dark and Fighting are very nice. He has the Weavile and Cobalion, so I do really like those together. I think they're very good offensively, so that's a good pair. And then yeah, momentum game on this team isn't the best. He has Magearna with Volt Switch, and Cobalion with Volt Switch. Yeah, that's his only 2 momentum gainers, but if he's able to set up Veil and pivot around everything appropriately and then get in his offense when he needs to, I don't think his team needs too much momentum. Oh, Decidueye does get U-turn and Baton Pass as well, my bad. But that's a couple options he has. As far as his natural bulk on this team, where his team's very, very good offensively, I think he actually did a good job drafting bulk too. Licky's a very good mon in my opinion, especially as of tier 5 or tier 4, I believe, this season. But yeah, it's a good wish passer for his team. I think it was a perfect pickup late for him. He picked up very late, and I think it was a good pickup. And wish passing into things that like Suicune that could need it, Cobalion potentially, Magirna if it's like a defensive Assault Vest variant or something, or even Volcarona or something behind Veil that wouldn't want to pass a Wish to or something like that. So I do like that on his team. I think Decidueye is going to be a very good defensive mon for him this season, as well as Donphan and potentially Cobalion. That's why I would have potentially put the Volcarona as his other Z user instead of Cobalion, just because I feel like Cobalion is going to fill more of a defensive role this season, but we'll have to see how it fares out. One of the bigger problems I see about this team is, yeah, I think I talked about it already, but he does have quite a big rock weakness. I think Weavile, Alolan Ninetales, Mega Salamence, Volcarona, yeah, Volcarona, all 4 of those are weak to rocks, and those are very, very good offensive mons on his team in general. So he is going to rely a lot on Donphan's Spin and Decidueye's Defog as his main way of hazard removal. So it's not the biggest problem in the world, but it is one thing you can point out on his team for sure. So that's basically all I have to say about the Hoopas and Coach Lemon. Getting to the next team, we have the Los Angeles Lycanrocs and Coach Arceus. Now, Arceus has the S tier of Zygarde Complete, which I'm very, very excited to see how he uses it this season, just because it was not drafted last season. For some reason, I don't know. It probably should have been, because this thing's a beast. If it gets under 50%, then it gets its full form, which is incredibly strong and hard to take down once it gets it. So I believe the way you use Zygarde, you can actually use... You might be able to use certain... I don't think it requires an item or anything, so you can use any item on it, so... It could be nice, potentially, if he wants to run like a Figgy on it or something. If he's able to get down to 25% and then use a Figgy on it and then get back up, you know, he gets his full form, and then he's, you know, gets to start wrecking things, because I don't think Zygarde Complete has reliable recovery. So that's going to be another interesting thing, but if it's able to start setting up Dragonitses and Coils and then get into its full form, boy, that's going to be a mess. That's going to be a mess to take down. So it could be a very good mon with leftovers and whatnot too, just because once it gets under half and then it gets its full form and then leftovers, you know, helps it back up. So really solid there. I think it could be a good mon. And then his A tier being Tapu Lele, which is a beast. Tapu Lele setting up the psychic terrain. I'll talk about that in a second on his team. And then just being really good mon. It actually lets him potentially get a couple more psychic types, or even another psychic type if he wants to on this team. So that's something I could point out. But yeah, that's his mons there. And then, you know, going over his whole team, he has the Mega Scizor, Hawlucha, Jolteon, Tyrantrum, Quagsire, Mr. Mime, Zygarde Complete, Tapu Lele, Cresselia, Milotic, Darmanitan, and Jinx. With his Z users being Jinx and Tapu Lele. Let's get into his cores immediately. Fire, Water, Grass. He has the Quagsire as his water. His Milotic is water as well. He has the Darmanitan as a fire, and then his Grass being a... Does he not have a Grass type? No Grass type, I don't believe. A little bit of a problem. No Grass types. Like I said, I really like Grass types, so we'll have to see how that works. That's one thing I'm gonna be harsh about. You need to have a Grass type on deck, so that's one thing. I mean, overall, I think that's a pretty solid core of. He does have the double water. I like Quagsire in this type of draft too, because it does get access to Water Absorb, which is a good ability just for water types in general. But it also gets Unaware, which is important for setup sweepers. And I think it could be a good stopper on his team to potentially help things late game. Like his offense, things like Hawlucha, Mega Scizor, Jolteon, Tapu Lele, and whatnot. But yeah, getting into his Fairy Dragon Steel, he has the Mega Scizor, Zygarde Complete, and Tapu Lele, so that is an absolutely disgusting core. One of the better ones for sure, if not the best. Mega Scizor just being an incredible good mon. It paired with Tapu Lele, in my opinion, though. It happened last season too, so I guess some people see something in it. I don't, but Tapu Lele stopping Mega Scizor's bullet punches is definitely a problem, because that's probably Mega Scizor's iconic move is just bullet punch. So don't know how I feel about that. I do like Tapu Lele. I do like the Fairy Dragon Steel core, but I don't like them synergized together. I don't think they're the best. But yeah, very good offensively, very good defensively, like I've been saying. Tapu Lele as a Z move mon is really good. Even if it's not carrying like a Psyche MZ and Fairy MZ, it could be carrying the Tapu MZ, so it gets the 75% off on a certain wall that might be sitting in the way of something like Hawlucha or Mega Scizor late game, or even Jolteon, to let Jolteon wear things down, which is really nice. So Tapu Lele is a good Z user on his team. And then get into his last core of the Psychic Fighting Dark that I've been talking about. He has the Hawlucha, Cresselia, Tapu Lele. He has a ton of psychics. You're going to see Cresselia, Tapu Lele, Mr. Mime, and Jinx. 4 psychic types, so that's something I'm definitely going to have to talk about. And then his dark type does not exist, I don't believe. No dark type. A little interesting. We'll have to see how it works out. But 4 psychic types and a fighting type. So he's definitely supporting Hawlucha from other fighting types, I guess. I don't know. That's one problem I think is I think 4 psychic types is going to be interesting. We'll have to see how that fares out. But yeah. I do like Hawlucha on this team with the Tapu Lele. being able to just wear things down. He has good offense. Otherwise, Jolteon's a very big nuisance to other mons. And I do like his defensive capabilities on this team with things like Milotic, Zygarde Complete, Quagsire, Mega Scizor. I do think a Wish Passer would be kind of nice on this team with things like Zygarde. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see though how he plays out his team. Momentum game, he has Mega Scizor, Jolteon, which is very solid on its own. And then, other than that, he has Darmanitan with U-Turn, which is a very good U-Turner, potential Choice Scarfer. So, overall, pretty decent team. Jinx is another Z user, so that's one thing to keep in mind. Jinx does have things that are going to be really cool for Z moves, so I won't really spoil anything, though, because I don't want to give that away for him. But I do think he picked the right Z users, and I do think that he has a pretty decent team. The 4 Psychics is something a little interesting, but yeah. Now, getting to the next team, we have the Bracknell, Beedrills, and Coach Splurge. Yeah. Splurge has the S tier of Lugia. This thing is fat and doesn't want to die. So Lugia is definitely one of the fattest mons in the draft, if not the fattest. So really cool that I decided to pick it up this season after seeing Bash use it last season for about half last season, maybe more than half. But it's a good mon for sure. And I'm glad he decided to pick it up. And then his A tier being the Mega Diancie, which in my opinion is one of my favorite Megas for sure. Definitely was pretty bad last season. I don't know if it was the coach's fault or not, but it was pretty bad. The blame was going to do his team as a whole. He has the Kartana, Gliscor, Galvantula, Mienshao, Druddigon, Gorgast, Lugia, Mega Diancie, Incineroar, Scolipede, Alomomola, Claydol, with the Z users being the Kartana and Scolipede. Now, right away, talking about Fire Water Grass, he has the Kartana, Incineroar, and his water type being the Alomomola, yeah. Alomomola, which is a very nice mon on this team. I like it on this team. So he's got the Fire Water Grass there, Alomomola being a fat defensive mon, Kartana being the complete opposite, and then Incineroar being very cool. Incineroar does not get access to Intimidate yet, unfortunately, so that's a little bit weird. That's one thing, Incineroar, I don't know if I'd value it at a tier 2, just because it doesn't have its Intimidate. If it did have Intimidate, then maybe I would put it there, but yeah, that's one thing I would point out. But very nice Fire Water Grass. I do like that about his team. Kartana's a beast overall. I think, oh my gosh, can I stop? Kartana's a beast overall, so I do like that. And then getting to his next score, he has the Fairy Dragon Steel of Druddigon, Mega Diancie, and Kartana, which is really, really nice. Very good offensive capabilities there. He does have the Druddigon, which adds to his Stealth Rocks, which is very good. I do like Druddigon a lot on this team. I think it's a good mon in general. Wish Passing from the Alomomola could be very solid for it too, being that it doesn't have any reliable recovery. So yeah, I do like that a lot. And then Kartana obviously fitting into the Fire Water Grass and the Fairy Dragon Steel cores immediately. So I think it's a very solid mon for this team. Also a defogger, so yeah, that's something to point out. And then his Psychic Fighting Dark cores being Mienshao, Incineroar, and the Fighting type. Where's his Fighting type? I can't. Oh, Mienshao, Incineroar, and then a Psychic type being the Lugia, which is very solid. So he fills all his cores, which is definitely one of the teams that a couple of teams fill all their cores, which is very solid. I do appreciate that. On Splurge's side, I think he did a very good job filling all 3 of them out. I don't think any of them are necessarily weak at all, so he did a very good job there. And yeah, getting into his overall, I want to talk about his offense and defense a little bit on this team. I think his offense is really, really good. Things like Kartana, Galvantula with webs is very good. Just Galvantula in general is a good offensive mon. Mienshao is a very good pivot, very good choice scarfer. Lugia can be offensive with Calm Mind and whatnot. Mega Diancie is a beast offensively. Scolipede, ridiculous, is one of his users too. So we'll see how that plays out. Incineroar, good offensive too. So that's really all the offense there is. It's a good offensive team. Defensively, this is probably one of my favorite defensive teams. I think it's one of the better defensive teams too. He has the Gliscor, very, very good defensive mon. Even though it has a 4 times weakness to ice, its Spadef with investment is insane. So that's one thing to point out. He has the Druddigon, which is a good just mon in general. It can be a good pivot to certain physical mons that make contact and such, like Mega Lopunny with Rough Skin Rocky Helmet's a very good set for that, weakening down for things like Scolipede and whatnot. And then other defensive mons like Gorgeist is a very good low-tier defensive grass type for his team. I do like that on his team a lot. And then he has the Lugia, which obviously is the king of bulk, and it gets access to Roost with multi-scale and then Calm Mind. So I mean that's ridiculous on its own. So that's a very good defensive mon for him. And then he has the access to things like Alomomola for Wish Passing and Claydol. Claydol itself is pretty bulky, so I do like the overall bulk and overall offense in this team. I think it's one of the better ones that way. So that's one thing I will give him credit for. And then talking about his hazards, this is personally my favorite thing about his team is his hazards. He has Gliscor with Stealth Rocks, Galvantula with Sticky Webs, Jordagon with Stealth Rocks, Mega Diancie with Stealth Rocks, and then Scolipede with Toxic Spikes, and then Claydol with Stealth Rocks. So he has a ton of different options there. And he does have Claydol as a spinner too, which is very good considering he can keep all his hazards up if he wants to. So I love his hazards. I think he did a very good job drafting his hazards on the team overall. And with a natural bulk of being able to wear things down, and then his offense with like Kartana and Kartana, Lugia, Mega Diancie, and Scolipede winning late game, it just has a very good. I like the synergy of the team a lot. So that's pretty much all I have to say about it. And one thing I will say that's kind of, I don't know. What's bad? I do like the team overall a lot. He has a couple things on his team that are just kind of glass cannons. He does have a little bit of a fire weakness. That's one thing I will point out. Kartana, Galvantula, Scolipede, and the Gourgeist, all weak to fire. He does have a little bit of a rock weakness as well with his multiple bugs, and then Incineroar, Lugia. So he's got a couple types he's pretty weak to, but overall I really like the team synergy. I think he's got a lot going for it, so I do like that a lot. And then as he uses Kartana and Scolipede, perfect options for his team. So very good. Getting into the next team, we're getting towards the end, guys. Don't worry. And of course, at the end, I'm going to go ahead and go to my notepad and rank the teams 12-1, of course. So yeah, getting into the next team, we have the New York Muse and Coach Bash. Now Bash does have the Tapu Koko, Kommo-o, Umbreon, Dhelmise, Quillfish, Alolan Raichu, Mega Metagross, Superior, Silvally, Tornadus, Therian, Mudsdale, Entei, and Z users being Tapu Koko and Tornadus, Therian. I just realized I forgot to talk about his S and A tier, but I'll just go ahead and go into his team as a whole, as I'm probably need to shorten these a little bit, but I'm definitely going to talk about him in depth. As yeah, Bash overall, his Fire Water Grass is he picked up the Entei. He has the Entei there, which is a very solid fire type, very good breaker. He's a double grass of Dhelmise plus Superior, which I think is good on his team. I think they fill different roles, so I do like that on his team a lot. And then his water type being Quillfish. As his only water, I don't know how I feel about that, but it is a very solid water at that, so we'll have to see how that works out for him. I think Quillfish being a hazard stack option it is, and then having the option with Dhelmise to spin, I think that's very solid on his team. And then Entei being a really, really good breaker, and being that it can just run Choice Band, and if Quillfish is able to get up with a layer of spikes or a layer of T-spikes, and then that really prevents a lot of switch-ins for Entei, and you're basically going to have to start sacking stuff, so very, very good solid core there. I do question a little bit on the only water type being Quillfish, but we'll see how he utilizes it. His Fairy Dragon Steel Core is Tapu Koko, Kommo-o, and Mega Metagross. One of the better ones for sure. Very good offensive synergy between those mons. They've really break through everything together. Mega Metagross really just breaking through the fairies that Kommo-o could have struggle with to let Kommo-o potentially sweep late game. And then Tapu Koko just being one of the biggest annoyances, best pivot mons in the game for sure. Getting access to U-turn, Volt Switch, 130 base speed, and then access to being one of his Z captains as well. So that mon is going to be insanely good on his team, so I can't wait to see that. So I do like the core there a lot. And then his last core being the Psychic Fighting Dark. Psychic, where's the Psychic? He has a Alolan Raichu. He might have another. Does he have another Psychic? I think that's his only Psychic. So I don't know how I feel about that, but it does synergize very well with his offense. So that's one thing to give him a plus for. His Dark type being Umbreon, which is a very good mon on this team. Good Wish Passer. I do like Wish Passing a lot, and I think it fits his team nicely with things like Mega Metagross, Superior, and whatnot. And then his fighting type being the Kommo-o once again. So Kommo-o fits the Dragon and Fighting role, which is two very nice typings. Obviously having a huge weakness to Fairy, but he does have a couple resistance to Fairy like the Quillfish, Entei, and Mega Metagross. So I think he does a nice job filling that out right there. So very good cores in general. Bash, in my opinion, has one of the best momentum cores. Like he might not have the most momentum users, but I think he has some of the best momentum users out of any draft. Being that Tapu Koko and Tornadus Therian are probably one of the best Volt Turn cores you could get. And then he has access to things like Alolan Raichu and Silvally with Parting Shot and even U-Turn on its own. So really, really good momentum in my opinion. I like that a lot on his team. To get in things like Mega Metagross and Entei just start breaking everything, and then potentially sweep like Kommo-o. That's kind of where I see this team going. And the access with Quillfish with all the hazard stack is very solid. So I do like that a lot about his team. And of course he has Torntea the Goat, so this team is looking solid. Yeah. The things I would like to point out, like I said, Quillfish being the only water is a little questionable for me, and then Alolan Raichu being the only Psychic is a little questionable for me. So a couple typings where I see could be a little bulkier are just pretty frail mons in general. So I think he's going to utilize his utilize his Umbreon and a couple of his other defensive mons very nicely if he wants his team to be successful. But I definitely do see it being a very solid team. So yeah, that's Bash's team in the New York Muse. I do like it a lot. And getting into the next team, we have the Killer Katanas and Coach Grape. So yeah, Grape has, like I said, I'm just going to go over the whole team now. He has the Hydreigon, Primarina, Venusaur, Cloyster, Lycanroc Day, Electivire, Groudon, Mega Mawile, Doublade, Fortress, Sigilyph, and Frogadier, with the Z-Captains being Lycanroc Day and Hydreigon. Now, Grape's team, immediately, let's go ahead and get into his cores once again. Fire, Water, Grass. He has the Mega Blaziken, Venusaur, and Frogadier. Oh, actually, he has the Primarina, which I'll count over the Frogadier, so very solid core in general. Primarina in... You're going to see he has the Groudon. So Primarina on a Sun team is a little bit interesting, but it is a good mod nonetheless on his team. I do like it on his team. If Sun's not up, it is a very good breaker, but it's still a good fairy nonetheless. So we'll have to see how it utilizes on his team. I think it fits a lot of roles on his team for sure too. So that's kind of cool. But the Mega Blaziken with, like, I guess you count this, like Mega Blaziken, Groudon, and Venusaur all together are really, really solid options offensively. So I like that on his team for sure. But yeah, and then getting to the Fairy Dragon still, he has the Primarina, Hydreigon, and the Double Steel of the Blade Fortress, which, not a big fan of that. They are very, very slow. They're both very, very slow. They don't feel too many rules. Like Fortress does give them a very good hazard stack option with spin on its own, but then I feel like the Blade, the only thing he really adds with that is a spin blocker. I don't really like the Blade pick on the team. I think Fortress by itself with another mon on there could have been nice. So we'll see how he utilizes the Blade though. It does give him a Ghost type, which is good on his team. So sorry if I'm like judging it for something. I don't know. I just feel like it's not the best fit on this team. But anyways, that's that. And then the Psychic Fighting Dark Core, he has Hydreigon, Mega Blaziken, and the Psychic. Where's his Psychic? Am I missing something? Sigilyph, yeah, Sigilyph is a Psychic type. Sigilyph's a pretty solid mon in general. Magic Guard's it's a good mon to set up with potentially late game for certain teams. I believe there's a couple teams without dark types, maybe one or two teams, but I don't know. So it could be a good mon there to set up with stored power potentially. And I do like Hydreigon as a Z user on his team. I think it's a good option for him. And then his fighting type was the Mega Blaziken. So Mega Blaziken is just a monster, man. Like I said, it's one of the best A tiers for sure. So that's really solid on his team. I think he did a good job drafting those overall. And that's probably his best core of the main ones. So yeah, get into his offense immediately. He's got a very good offensive team with, like I said, Groudon, Mega Blaziken, and Venusaur on their self form a very, very solid core. Primarina would be really, really nice with that if the Water Stab would be not nullified by the Sun, of course. But that is one problem I see with this team for sure, and we'll see how he can work around that. So yeah, that's the cores mainly. But like I said, the offense looks solid. I think it's a very good offensive team. Like I said, Mega Blaziken, Groudon, Venusaur form a very solid core right there of offense. And then Hydreigon being as a user is incredibly hard to switch into. So we'll have to see how that works. He has a ton of different hazard options. I do like that on his team. He has, I believe, 3 different T-Spike users with Cloyster, Fortress, and Frogadier. Actually, all 3 of those might get spikes too. Yeah, all 3 of those get spikes and T-Spikes, and Fortress get access to Stealth Rocks and Rapid Spin. So a ton of hazard stack options, which is really cool. And that could be a good option for for things like Venusaur to sweep late game, even Scarfed Hydreigon, and other options like that, maybe even Sigilyph. Yeah. I don't know. The Blade plus Fortress is really bothering me though. I don't like the Blade on the team. Double Water, Cloyster plus Primarina is a little bit interesting. I feel like he could have maybe changed up the Cloyster pick. Just because he has Fortress, which fills a lot of the same things it does, and then the Blade, I really just wish he would have got a different Ghost. Just because he sets the Sun for the Double Steel too, which isn't the best, because if there's another Fire type, it's going to blow his back. So I do like his offensive synergy. I think his defensive synergy is not the best, because some of his defensive mons don't really have reliable recovery, and then they kind of get hindered by the Sun. So things like Sigilyph I feel like are going to be pretty decent defensively if he wants to use it that way. And I also feel like Hydreigon might have to run as a nice defensive pivot on his team, just because a lot of his main offense hinders his defense, if that makes any sense. But he does have one of the best hazard stacking teams for sure, so I have to give him that. And his users, I didn't really talk about Lycanroc Day or Electivire very much, but those are very good offensive mods. Electivire giving him a nice electric type, electric immunity as well for things like Primarina, Frogadier, and Cloyster. He does have 3 waters, so that's interesting on a Sun team, so yeah. But he does have Electivire, which is solid. And Lycanroc Day gives him another Stealth Rocker, so things like Lycanroc adds to his hazards, which is very good. And he does have the spin option with Fortress, Defog being like Hydreigon. Any other Defoggers? Sigilyph might get Defog, I'm not sure, but pretty decent. I think his hazards are really solid, so yeah. That's the Killer Katanas and Coach Grape. And then get into our last team. We are here at the last team, and our last final new coach, which is Hobie and the Cincinnati Bagons. Now, Hobie has the team of Mega Venusaur, Mandibuzz, Rabombi, Piloswine, Komala, Rotom, Palkia, Blaziken Speed Boost, which is not Mega. Still a very solid mon in general. And he has the Jirachi, Sneasel, Aselgor, and Chimecho. Yeah, Chimecho. With his users being the Palkia and the Blaziken, which, Blaziken with a Z move, that's pretty scary. So yeah. And getting into his cores immediately. Fire, Water, Grass, he has the Mega Venusaur, Palkia, and the Fire type being... Or just Fire. Does he have a Fire? Oh, Blaziken, yeah, duh. That's a really good Fire, Water, Grass. Probably one of the best up there again. Palkia not being your ideal water, but it is a very good defensive mon just because Dragon resists so many different things. And water, it has a very strong water stab, so definitely can't complain about that. And I think Palkia is a good mon for sure. Not one of my favorite S tiers, but I think it is a good mon for his team. I think he did pretty good around it because, yeah, I think he drafted pretty good with it. I think that's one of the best cores for sure of the Fire, Water, Grass. Offensively, which is really good. Even Mega Venusaur just being a very good offensive and defensive mon for his team. Getting into his Fairy Dragon Steel, he has the Palkia, Jirachi, and what else are we looking for? His Fairy, yeah, and his Fairy is being Rabombi, which is actually a really cool option on this team too. I think Rabombi offering the sticky webs on this team is pretty nice. It helps out things like Jirachi, even Sneasel. If you want to run like a choice band Sneasel, helps with a couple faster things. Other than that, I don't see webs doing too much, but Rabombi as a fairy type in general is not bad, so I do appreciate that pick. And then his last core being the Fighting Psychic Dark. He has the Sneasel, Jirachi, and the Blaziken. So really solid core once again. I think he did a good job with all three of his cores right there. If he meant to or not, it's just three cores I kind of look over, so I think he did good with all of them. Offensively, they're really, really good. And then Venusaur, you're going to see... he does have the Mandibuzz as the Dark type too, so I think Mandibuzz is really, really good option with the Mega Venusaur. And that's actually the next thing I want to talk about is his defense. This is one of my favorite defensive teams in the draft for sure. He has the Mega Venusaur, Mandibuzz, and Jirachi core, which Jirachi paired with Mega Venusaur alone is very, very solid because it is a 4x resist to Psychic, which is one of Venusaur's weaknesses. And then it also resists the Flying type, which is very solid. And Mandibuzz just being an immunity to Psychic is incredibly good for Mega Venusaur. So I think Mega Venusaur is really, really good. It's supported really, really nice by his other defense with potential Jirachi with Wish. Mandibuzz just being a very good defensive mon overall. And then he has other options to be defensive overall with Piloswine that could really support or really use some Wish support from Jirachi. And things like Chimecho is actually really solid defensively as a another Psychic mon that does get access to Recover. And then Palkia just being bulky overall, so a good defensive team. With his offense being mainly Blaziken, Speed Boost, Sneasel whenever it comes, Scarf Jirachi is an option, even offensive Jirachi, Calm Mind Jirachi, Mega Venusaur when it can be offensive, so I think it's a very balanced team, and then it has a good hazard game with things like Piloswine, Jirachi, Aselgor with stacking options with spikes, T-spikes and whatnot. Does he only have two Stealth Rockers, Jirachi and Piloswine? I think there's only two Stealth Rockers, but they are two very solid Stealth Rockers at that, and I can see both of them coming to a decent amount of games, so we'll have to see how that works out overall. And he does have a spinner of Komala, so pretty solid. I do like that on his team. And like I said, I think it's just a really good balanced team overall. And I think Palkia and Blaziken were probably his two best users he could have chose. Yeah, probably his best users for sure. So yeah, that's the teams, guys. And actually, we're gonna go ahead and get into my notes right here. And I'm actually just gonna start writing them down. And guys, this is just my opinion on the teams. I've already really thought about it and put into depth about how I feel about the teams. And yeah, this is no means I'm not biased about this at all. I put some people lower than they probably think they are, just because I don't know. But I put some people higher than they probably think they are. So we'll have to see how this goes. And at 12, I actually have my boy Arceus. Now, immediately, I have Arceus at 12. He does have very strong components on his team, but the fact that he has 4 Psychic types automatically just, I don't like that at all. His knockoff switch-ins aren't great. Outside of Mega Scizor, Mega Scizor is a really good knockoff switch-in, right? But outside of that, he does not have a mon that appreciates coming into knockoffs at all. And every time he's in with one of those Psychic types on a Pokemon that has to click knockoff, then they're going to be forced to switch out into probably Mega Scizor almost every time. And if that Dark-type Pokemon has fire coverage, then that's going to be a very obvious switch, because there's not really another Dark-type, or there's not really another mon on the team that wants to switch into a knockoff, if I really look at it. Quagsire doesn't, a mon like Quagsire that maybe wants to come into knockoff doesn't really appreciate losing its leftovers. A mon like Zygarde doesn't really appreciate losing its item. and then other mons just don't really switch into it well. So yeah, that's one huge weakness I saw on the team. I am not. I didn't really talk about the stealth rocks much on this team. I don't. Yeah, the only stealth rocker on the team actually is Tyrantrum. That's one thing I forgot to mention. So I don't know how often Tyrantrum is going to run stealth rock. So it's one thing I wanted to point out. So that is unfortunately the reason I had to put you at 12. But hopefully you can prove me wrong. I do like your team as a total. I think it looks really cool. I really want to see how you use Zygarde complete. And I think you got a very good offensive team overall. So we'll have to see how that works out. At 11, we actually have Grape. Now, Grape's team, I do think it has a very good offensive core, like I was talking about, Mega Blaziken, Groudon, and the Venusaur. I think all those construct a very nice offensive synergy. But I think he has a couple of redundancies on the team. That was the word I was looking for earlier. A couple of redundancies being things like the Fortress and Cloyster. They do a lot of the same things, even though they have a different typing. They do a lot of the same things. And Cloyster actually has the same typing, or not the same typing, but he has a very similar typing to things like Primarina and Frogadier, which obviously I was talking about get hindered by the Sun. So that is just the main thing I was talking about on the Sun. Oh my gosh, on the Sun team, where he has 3 water types, and then he has a couple of redundancies. And that double steel I'm not a fan of, but like I said, I do really like the overall offensive construction of the team. I think Hydreigon's going to be a very important mon for you offensively and defensively, just because I feel like a lot of your defense gets hindered by the Sun, like I was talking about. Your team doesn't have the most reliable recovery either. I don't know if I mentioned that. Venusaur does have a nice recovery, especially in the Sun. Sigilyph, but other than that, I don't think he has the most, so that's something to point out. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Grape. And getting to the 10th spot, I actually have my boy Kurt coming in 10th. And yeah, getting to Kurt's team, let me find it. Oh my gosh, yeah, main reason Kurt's team is at 10 is for the speed. Like, Kurt's team on face value, I really like the way it looks. It's one of my favorite teams, just like the Pokemon on it and stuff. It's one of my favorite teams for that reason. But the fact it's so slow, I have to put it pretty low. He's got to prove me wrong, though. If he can get another couple of Trick Roomers on this team, I think it would be a lot better, and I would probably put it higher on the list if it was. But the fact that it does have that, just being so slow in an Uber League like this with a lot of very fast offensive mons, I don't know how I feel about that. So yeah. But like I said, maybe he can try to win most of his games defensively and whatnot through his bulk, because he has pretty good bulk overall. So yeah, that's pretty much it there. Getting into number 9, we have my boy Coach Oak. So yeah, we have Coach at number 9 on the freaking teams. You guys have been talking for so long. I'm sorry. Number 9, Coach Oak. As like I was talking about, he's got that really weak ground. He's got the really big ground weakness at the moment. His team is incredibly offensive, so maybe he can win most of his games offensively and not have to worry about switching too many times into ground type Pokemon. But for example, I can see something like a Choice Scarf Garchomp, Choice Scarf Landorus, or something like that, just putting in a ton of work against this team. Just because the ground spammable, it's very ground spammable, and that's the one big thing I see on the team. It has a pretty big rock weakness too, so that's something to point out. And yeah, like I said, his only immunity to the ground is Scyther, whereas only resistance is Executor, and I don't really know how much either of those will come, to be honest. So that's the reason I had him at 9. Other than that, I really like he has a very good offensive team, and I think Audino really complements it too. So he's definitely got some pluses. But yeah, getting into number 8, we actually have the Commissioner of the League Honor and his Portland Primates with his team. Now, I believe I was talking about Honor's team a little bit earlier, and the main reason I have it at 8, like a lot of the guys, these start getting really hard. Like, I really do like most of these teams, but I had to list them. I had to list some ahead of the others, of course. So, like I said, his only 2 Stealth Rockers being the Regirock and Aggron, I feel like is a pretty big problem on this team. Whereas his team really could appreciate rocks, things like Thundurus and Naganadel would appreciate putting things in range of their attacks after Stealth Rocks. So that's something really important. So I didn't like the fact that those were his only 2 rockers, because they are very redundancy. Like I was talking about with Grape's team, he's got a couple of redundancies with those mons right there. But other than that, there's really nothing wrong with the team, in my opinion, like by face value, what I see of it. I just have to break down what I can, and that's the reason I put it at 8. But like I said, once we start getting into, especially 7 and below, like there's not really too many big problems I see. So I just basically had to put them in order of which I think were the best. So yeah. And coming at number 7, let me look down on my list again. We have Jay at number 7. So we actually have Jay's team at number 7. I may have went a little bit too harsh on it during the analysis part beginning, but Like I said, not a fan of his rockers. He has the Deoxys and the Landorus as his only rockers, and those are his Z users. So that in its own is a little bit of a problem for me. But they are decent rockers. Deoxys does have the option to spike stack, hazard stack for his offense, like Landorus, Mega Lucario, Latios, to potentially put in work with his parting shot with Malone Persian. So I did really ultimately like his offensive synergy put together. But the reason I really had to put the team a little bit lower, or yeah, a little bit lower than some of these top teams, was just because his rockers and his overall defense isn't the best. Snorlax is going to be relied on as a defensive model a lot. And maybe defensive Landorus, depending on how he uses his team. So yeah, that's the reason we have him at 7. And at number 6, we have, oh yeah, my boy Sumami. My boy Sumami at number 6 with his team. Seattle Sun, there they are. And yeah, like I was talking about with Sumami's team, main reason it's not near the top. Well, I mean, like, I really like his team. I think he did a good job drafting with Magnezone, like I was talking about, and Tentacruel and whatnot. But the reason it's at 6 is because of his main rock weakness. He has a 5 Pokemon weak to rocks. I think the Shedinja is very, very weak on this team. I do like that he can stick to the Shedinja though and picks it in his drafts, but I do think it's pretty weak on this team overall. And that's really all I have to say about it. The rock weakness, I do like the team overall as a whole. He does have 3 flying types, so I don't know how I feel about that, I guess. But I like his Z users. I like how he complements the Magnezone onto the team, and I like his offense and his defense. I think they're both it's a very nice balanced team. So that's the reason it is sitting at 6. And coming in at number 5, we actually have my boy Lomain. My boy Lomain at number 5 with his Veil offense team. Now, the main reason it isn't at the top, like, this in my opinion is probably the best offensive team in the draft. Just the way it complements each other, type-wise, or not type-wise, I guess mainly with the Veil and offense, it makes it extremely scary. And that he has his own form of weather, which can, take over other teams' weather. Like we have the Sun and the Rain team, I believe. I don't think we have a Sand team. No, that's the only form we don't have. But I think Lomain just really does a good job pairing his things. He did a good job pairing his Volcarona. He does have a bit of a rocket weakness, like I was talking about, so he's going to rely on things like the Donphan a lot with the spin and this is why with Defog. But I do think he has very good options with offensive like the Volcarona, Cobalion, Weavile, Magearna, and Mega Salamence. So overall, a very good offensive team, and he did fill out the bulk decently well. So I do like that about his team. Now, getting into number 4, we actually have Hobie and his Cincinnati Bagons. Now, Hobie's team is probably my favorite team, and it's probably the team I would want to use out of any of the drafts. But I do see a little bit. I do think there's a couple teams a little bit better than this. Hobie's team, I really don't know what to point out too bad about it. I don't think the webs from Rabambi are great, but maybe that's not the main purpose he drafted Rabambi for. As I said, Rabambi's a pretty good fairy on his team in general, so that might be a reason he picked it. So I definitely can see that. And then I just really like his defensive synergy with Mega Venusaur, Mandibuzz, Piloswine, Jirachi. Even Chimecho is not bad on it, and then Palkia is a good just bulky mon in general. It can just break things. And one thing I would point out about his team is he doesn't really have the greatest potential win cons like late game outside of Blaziken. Maybe Jirachi, but other than that, not too many. But overall, I thought the team was very solid, a very good balanced team, and I do like balance, so I had to put it there. And coming in at number 3, we have my boy Bash and his New York Muse. Now, Bash, like I said, one of the best momentum teams for sure with Tapu Koko, Torn T, Parting Shot from Silvally, and then Volt Switch from Alolan Raichu, and things like Mega Metagross and Entei make this team extremely scary. He was talking about after the draft, I believe he said he didn't have too many setup mons outside of Como, but I don't think that's too bad of a problem considering his team really focuses on momentum plus breakers, and I think that's very solid with the combination of things like Quillfish to Hazard Stack. So I really like that on his team. I do wish he had another water type outside of Quillfish, but maybe he can do something about that throughout the season, or maybe he can just prove me wrong that he doesn't need another one. So, yeah, that's the main reason we had Bash at number 3. Get into number 2, we actually had my boy Sketch. Sure, AV. And, yeah, Sketch AV and the Winston Weavals. So, like I was talking about with Sketch's team, really, really constructed well together Rain team. I think he did a good job with it. Tornadus and Klefki are very, very good support mons on this team overall. So I do like that. And I do like the option with Armaldo and Beartick under the Rain. I think it's going to be good sweepers for his team. Beartick having a Z-Crystal is going to be very cool to see. And Necrozma as well. Mega Manectric being a very good electric type for the team as well. Just paired around Kyogre is going to be incredibly hard to deal with. And then his defensive synergy with Goodra and a lot of support from Klefki. and Miltank and Amoonguss and whatnot. So very solid team. And if you guys weren't aware by now, we are down to our last team. And if you don't know who it is, then well, there it is. It's Splurge. We got Splurge at number 1. Now, Splurge team, the main reason I have it number 1 is because of overall his hazards are insane. He has insane hazards with the option with Sticky Web, T-Spike, Spike, all these different stealth rockers. Very good defensive mons to wear things down. And then late game, he has good sweepers in Scolipede, Kartana, Mienshao, Mega Diancie. Like, I think his team is constructed overall to the best he could build it. And that's the reason I put it at number 1. And yeah, that's pretty much the power rankings, guys. I'm going to go ahead and I'll put them in the chat, or I'll get honor somebody to put them in the chat afterwards for sure. And then you guys can come watch the video if you want to see the reason and why. And I've just broke it down for you guys. Hopefully this wasn't too long, but I feel like to give a really good in-depth analysis of it, I need to make it pretty long. So anyways, that's going to be it for me, guys. And if you did enjoy this video, leave a like and subscribe if new. Peace.